In 1988, the Bay Area's only alternative modern rock station was Live 105. One afternoon, my favorite DJ of all time, Steve Masters, played a song that stopped me dead in my tracks, Carolyn's Fingers by Cocteau Twins. I had no idea what just hit me. All I knew was that I was hearing a sound unlike anything I've ever encountered before, a sound that would forever change the way I listen to music. Hello, everyone. This is W, host of the podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. Today, I'm thrilled and honored to welcome a true pioneer of the dream pop and alternative music genres. Joining us all the way from Brighton, England, former bassist of Cocteau Twins, part of the indie duo Lost Horizons, co-founder of Bella Union Records, and one of the most influential figures in independent music, Simon Raymonde. He's written a book called In One Ear, Cocteau Twins, Ivor, and Me, which has received some remarkable praise from artists, including Elton John. As he states, it's a wonderful book. Cillian Murphy, the great Irish actor, writes, it's a beautiful, insightful, and honest look into the life of the legend and musical polymath, Simon Raymonde. Let us welcome him to Surprise Cast.
Hey, William, it's lovely to be here with you and your guests. Looking forward to what we will discover through the following conversation.
Thank you, Simon, for being part of this conversation. And before we get to the belly of this conversation, I want to kick out a icebreaker question. Here it goes. What has been inspiring you lately related to the arts?
For sure, musically, I would say the new album by Boards of Canada. I've been looking forward to that record for so long without realizing it because I just missed them so much. They disappeared from the music scene for such a long time. And to hear just in the last couple of months, really, that they were planning a comeback was really exciting for me, like in a way that I haven't really felt for a long time. And then, of course, the anticipation of the first song they put out and thinking, wow, this is exciting. And then physically getting the product. I got it on the day of release. I'd pre-ordered it. I got the deluxe version, got a couple of beautiful T-shirts and a cap. And I just felt like a teenager again, like going into a shop and buying records when you're a kid. And it just felt very exciting to me.
You miss those days of just hanging out at either a friend's house, listening to some vinyl, or just going to, a record shop and just twiddling through?
Well, listen, I miss a lot of things about that era, like, my teenage years for sure. One always, when you write a memoir, you do become quite wistful about the past and, go back into that space in your head of what that felt like, the smells and the sounds of that era. And for sure, I miss it. But at the same time, there's lots of great things going on in modern music that excite me. I'm not one of these people that just spends the whole time thinking that the old days were the better days. I'm not sure that's really how I live my life. But for sure, I miss certain things about it. Certainly hanging out with my friends from that period because those are the formative years,
Right. Yeah. Thank you for sharing what's been inspiring you lately.
Send me a crowd of words.
I've been reading this book for a while. It's called Rules for a Night, written by the great actor Ethan Hawke. I used to read some of this to my students, elementary school students, and it's structured around 20 virtues that a fictional character by the name of Sir Thomas Hawke, he writes to his children before what he expects will be his final battle in life. It's not so much about knighthood. It's about how to live an honorable, meaningful life. And as I read your book and thought about your journey as a musician, a father, a son, a label owner who has navigated through the tough waters and successful waters, I want to discuss some of the virtues from the ninth book and how it may connect to your book. So this first one we're going to focus on is solitude. Allow me to read quickly a little bit of it to you, and then I've got a few questions for you. Here we go. One time, on a sweltering August night, Grandfather and I made camp down by the ocean. He said, "While I teach you about the ways of war, I want you to know that the real struggle is between the two wolves that live inside of us." "Two wolves?" I asked. My eyes were transfixed. "One wolf is evil. It is angry, envy, greed, arrogance." He paused, poking the embers. "The other is good. It is joy, love, hope, humility." I considered what he was telling me for a minute, and then I asked, "Grandfather, which wolf will win?" Sparks danced toward the stars. He said, "Whichever one you feed." So, here is my question for you regarding this idea of solitude, if you will. Tell me about how solitude has been a pathway to enlightenment and self-discovery for you.
Yes, well, that's a fascinating question and something that probably I wouldn't really have ever considered until later on in life. I was a very slow developer, slow on the uptake, and I didn't really look after myself and my own thoughts and my own development mentally until probably I was in my feet or early feet, when I think I was just really struggling with working out that life-work balance that I know everybody struggles with. I know when you're working for yourself, and you're running your own company, and you have responsibilities to staff and to home, and as a parent and as a the owner of a dog and a house, and you've got all these different things conflicting, and how do you fit it all in? And I wasn't managing that at all well in my late 40s, early 50s. I was working way too much, to the detriment of my mental and physical health. And I eventually worked it out that I needed to stop doing what I was doing on a daily basis and completely change my life around. And I managed to do it successfully. Moving to Brighton was the sort of catalyst to that. I think when you're living in the city of London, as I was for 50 years, this very exciting place, like a lot of great cities, New York, Paris, Berlin. There's so much going on. You can get very drawn into it and sort of seduced by the noise and the chaos, and it becomes normal until you burn yourself out completely, and you find yourself struggling to keep up with it. And that's what was happening to me in London. When I escaped to Brighton, I do think it was an escape, both for my wife and I, because she was originally from New York. When we moved to Brighton, it was almost like the minute I walked out the train station, when I got off that train with my dog and my cat, as I saw the sea, I was like, I sort of felt like I'd come home. I'd never probably been home before, and arriving in Brighton was definitely the place I felt most at home ever, in terms of sort of a place to live and a place to prosper physically and mentally. And just the walks along the coast, which I do every day, either walking or on my bicycle, that gives me an immense calm and solitude. I put my headphones on. Sometimes I don't even have anything in my headphones. I just put the noise cancelling on. So I'm just hearing my breathing and experiencing the elements and the wind and the rain or whatever it is, and I'm really living the moment. And that, whether it's 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever it is I dedicate to that time, that allows me to do a better job as a husband, a wife. I almost said that. As a husband, a father, and a colleague, and a boss. I do all those things better because I live where I live and I'm able to take the time for myself. So solitude has really actually saved my life in many ways, because even though I'm 64 now, I don't feel like an old man yet. I mean, sometimes my body aches when I get up in the morning, but that's normal. But I still have the mental capacity and the excitement to wake up and experience the day and meet people and develop the journey as I go. I still feel like I'm on the journey. I'm not at the end of it.
And in terms of that journey for you, in connection to solitude, I can tell you right now that I have been in that solitary experience with Cocteau Twins music, Lost Horizons, Slow Dive, Ride, Kitchen of Distinction. For you, Simon, did music become a form of solitude? And if so, when do you feel like that was most fruitful?
I mean, at various points, I can't say it happened one day and then forevermore it was thus. I would say like on tour, those sort of difficult days on tour with the band in the last few years when Robin and Elizabeth had actually broken up as a couple, but we remained intact as a band. I found the touring very difficult because, you're in a very small space like a bus with people that are, not really in a great space with each other, and trying to manage that dynamic between, ex-boyfriend and girlfriend being in a band together. It is quite tricky. And I found that the solitude of being in my bunk at night with my headphones on, listening to Apollos and Atmospheres by Brian Eno or something just super calming and sort of spacey and ethereal. That record to me is one of the most beautiful records to listen to when you're feeling a bit stressed out, because it just really takes you out of yourself, and it's got that incredible sort of reverby country pedal steel guitar that's like sped up or something, and it's up in the distance, and it's almost like, well, this must be the kind of music that astronauts would love to listen to. That's how I think when I'm listening to it. So that kind of music, I mean, Boards of Canada does it as well in a way. Certainly the new record, which has lots and lots of ambient moments on it. It's not all beats and electronics, very much sort of actually quite Cocteau-y in a way, and I really enjoyed that. So for sure, instrumental ambient music. Harold Budd, of course, is another absolute genius in the minimal ambient world that can really help you with the solitude and just focusing in on the important things. It's just cutting out all the distracting noises.
I often used to work with my students in the morning about sitting with solitude, sitting with that space, that quietness, particularly to help them cope with things going on at home, divorce, loss of a brother or sister, whatever it may be, dealing with grief. So what has grief taught you about being alone inside your thoughts?
Well, I mean, the word lone and lonely often sort of not really spoken about in this, you're alone, but are you lonely? I actually don't feel lonely when I'm alone. I actually enjoy my own company. That certainly never used to be the case. I would always I couldn't even bring myself to be in the house without some music on, or the TV on, or the radio on, or sports on, or something. And in a way, I suppose having dogs in a way keeps you're always busy. You're always taking them out, going here, putting the lead on, putting the collars on, opening the door, shutting the door, letting them in, letting them out. You're constantly busying yourself. But when you're truly alone, you have to sort of be at peace with that. And I don't think you can just sort of wake up one morning and it's there. You have to work really hard at it and accept that it is part of growing old, losing a parent, losing, in my case, both parents quite young, losing friends at school, or people from drug problems or from cancer. Loss is just an everyday part of our lives now. And for me, at my age, it's quite frequent. There's people dropping dead every 5 minutes in my sort of circle. So I've gotten used to it. That's not a good phrase. I just mean I'm less freaked out by that stuff, the death, the solitude, the loneliness, and actually find quite a lot of peace with it. I guess I'm just lucky that I've managed to go through the difficult times and come out the other end with not full understanding of it all. Believe me, I don't have that, but at least I have an acceptance of it and an ability to kind of get through the difficult things by just accepting that that's how it is. It's okay. Don't let it get you down. Get up tomorrow morning and crack on with your day. I don't get too bogged down in the drama. I really like an undramatic person. I never probably wasn't in my 20s and 30s. I used to find everything quite overwhelming. But maybe all the issues I've had with health or my own health and seeing other people that I love not being here anymore, it just gives you a bit of humility about the whole thing, you know.
It certainly does. And let's transition into this next virtue in this book, Rules for a Night, written by Ethan Hawke. This is about pride. And in this section, this is what is stated here. A knight takes pride in his handwriting. He keeps careful track of saddle, his boots, his weapons. He cleans and cares for his tools, animals, and his person. He carries his own bag. The laces of his boots are strapped right. Always prompt. A knight is not casual with the time of others. So in terms of pride, Simon, tell us a moment that you felt very prideful with Bella Union.
There's a lot of those, to be honest with him. There's, I can think of a lot. I mean, there's one next year will be our 30th year in business as a label, and I'm already feeling a sense of pride that we've gotten that far. Well, touch wood that we actually do make it that far. You know, I think all of those sorts of like landmark moments in this industry right now, which is honestly, truly, William, it's never been more complicated for young bands, for labels like mine, truly independent labels where you're doing for and paying for everything yourselves, to keep it all going and to keep your heads above water, to make money, to provide for your family, and for bands to even be able to perform regularly. They certainly can't travel like they used to. It has never been harder. So I think just being here, still trying to do our thing of developing new artists, you know, working with obviously the more popular names, the Beach Houses, the Father John Misty's, the Flaming Lips. Yes, those are all absolutely crucial parts of the label's history, but I feel a sense of pride pretty much every day in the fact that we are trying, not always successfully, we are trying to help young artists get a foot up the ladder.
Yes.
It's not an ego thing, because pride, you know, that you can get a bit carried away with pride and can confuse it with having a very large ego. I don't really see that connection here. My ego is quite minimal, I like to think, but I'm very proud of what we're able to do for them, and then in return, what they do for themselves. Because it's all very well me giving them a platform to put a record out. That's quite easy. But when you're working together and you know, everyone's kind of got the same targets in mind and you're all working incredibly hard, that's when you start to see some increments in success. And that's what I love, because you cannot do this thing on your own. You know, a band can't get anywhere on their own. Well, some can, of course, but, you know, generally it's a struggle on your own unless you have help from a booking agent or a publicity person or a radio person. If you've got a label that have a lot of these elements involved, then it makes their life a lot easier. And I know record labels are generally put down quite a lot these days because they have let a lot of people down over the years, and they have made a lot of labels made some horrendous mistakes. Contracts are pretty terrible, still are, but we're just trying to do our tiny little bit in the world. Maybe in time, no one will remember what we did, but I think, you know, a very small select few will.
Well, I might have to differ with that. And I had the great fortune of speaking with C. Duncan. I did a nice interview with him, and what a class act. And he spoke obviously very favorable of his current situation being directly linked to Bella Union. You mentioned something that caught my attention about pride can turn into somewhat this feeling of almost vanity. How do you prevent that from happening?
By just checking in on yourself all the time and not, you know, I think the industry is obviously, when you get into it, the sort of pop music, if you want to call it that, you can't really exist in it without some kind of vanity, without some kind of ego, whether it's staring at yourself in the mirror to make sure you look stylish and cool when you go out and you have your photo taken. The whole industry is exists on ego. But at my end, and I'm looking at putting my hat on as a label person here, not as an artist, because when you're an artist, you cannot really do it without some ego involved, because otherwise you'll fall under the radar and you'll be too bland for anyone to notice what you're doing. But from my perspective, I can't let my ego and my sort of, not arrogance, that's the wrong word, but my sort of confidence in knowledge of a situation and how to deal with it, I can't really let that overtake the fact that I'm just here to help. I'm not here to say, well, I think because I did it with my band, I think you should make your records like this, and I think your contract should look like that. I've got to take myself out of the equation pretty much on an hourly basis when I'm doing music, when I'm doing management, when I'm doing production, when I'm doing record label stuff. I have to sort of say to myself, you're not that Cocteau Twins guy here in this conversation. You're the record label guy that has those experiences, that those experiences purely give you some, I don't know, wisdom is probably the wrong word, some, background knowledge that you may well know how you would have dealt with the situation. But that doesn't mean to say that you're right in it. So I think you have to constantly check yourself and just say, be advisory, be helpful, but always be humble, because it's nothing worse than somebody it's a know-it-all. And I just think the music business doesn't need any more know-it-alls at the moment. It's got it wrong so many times by listening to know-it-alls.
It's funny you say that, because sometimes after my interviews, I'll speak with the artist for a couple minutes after, and sometimes I'll say, hey, W, what do you think we could be doing differently on social media, blah, 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 blah. Any advice? And I say to them this, it's actually pretty simple. Don't be a dick.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be a dick. I say that all the time.
Because there are a lot of dicks in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this book that you'd written, In One Ear, there are some wonderful photos of you with the band, some great black and white, some color photos. And we all know it wasn't just, peaches and cream and roses all the time. But in looking back and the success with the Cocteaus, how would you have defined success back then? And how do you define success now?
I mean, back then, success for us wasn't anything to do with sales or numbers. It was to do with being able to do what we wanted to do in our own way without interference. Even if we got it hopelessly wrong, just having that ability to say, we don't need to know what you think about this. This is how we want to do it. So to be totally independent, that was, to us, the greatest success of all. Having our own studio, not having anyone come along to the studio and keeping people away, that felt like success. It wasn't really judged for us anyway in terms of chart numbers and, because if in hindsight, looking now, you go, oh my God, if I had 100,000 selling record today, I mean, we would be kings of the world.
Right.
We would be like the best record label on the planet in terms of numbers. But you're not. That's just, those numbers don't exist unless you're, major labels. We'll see. You can't really draw parallels with the past, I don't think, anymore. You can't say, well, that was then, so this is now. But it's almost like a different business. There's very little similarity between what I experienced in the 80s and 90s and even maybe just the early 2000s and what we're currently at in 2026. But it's different industry altogether. So for success now, it's being able to carry on doing it. That feels like, wow, amazing. And, certainly I don't look at streams still in terms of success because I'm out of the habit of it. So when someone says, how many streams have they got? I honestly don't know. I don't ever sign a band by looking how many likes they have, followers that I couldn't care less. Honestly, I couldn't. It doesn't interest me at all because I'm listening to the bloody thing. I'm not looking at a Instagram screen to tell me whether I like them or not. I'm listening to it going, oh, these guys are amazing. I know I'm going to go watch them live and find out if they truly are. That's my judgment on it. So that to me is the success of now. It's being able to still do what I believed was right back then when I was in a band myself.
At a high quality level.
Well, that's for you to say.
All right. One of my favorite parts of this book, Virtue, is called Courage. And Sir Thomas says courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting rightly despite fear. And you have talked about some really difficult moments in your life in this book. And one of the couple stories that really caught my attention, 9/11 and the incident in Mexico. And it can kind of tell us how life can be so unpredictable. So tell us a little bit more about courage within those moments, particularly the Mexico one, despite the fear that you might have been feeling. And how do you think that changed your perception on life?
Well, the Mexico story, I suppose, does require a little bit of context for those listening. Well, the incident, just to briefly précis it, was that I was in a situation in a taxi in Mexico where I was getting taken out of the city by the taxi driver with a view to most likely, either slitting my throat and walking off with all my goods or just dumping me somewhere, dumping my body in the street. There was definitely no good was going to happen in the 5 or 10 minutes after I managed to escape from this taxi. So the short version is I escaped from the taxi and I'm still here, folks. But at the time, it was super scary. And you have to the fact that you get out of a situation like that when really you're thinking, oh, blimey, there's nothing good going to happen here unless I act like right now. And I just got super lucky. The lights went red. There was 2 cars in front of the taxi and a few behind. So I knew he couldn't go anywhere for at least a minute or two, and that was my moment to jump out the cab and escape and run the hell backwards, which is how I got away. So I think what it teaches you is, okay, well, I don't want to put and the irony here is I was told by the Mexican promoter not to get into a cab. Don't get into a cab in this area. In fact, don't get into a cab on your own at all because they'll know you're a Westerner. They'll see that you are. And they will want to take advantage of you, and most likely it will end badly. I didn't take heed to his advice, and as a consequence, I almost got myself killed. So the lesson there is, when someone gives you some sage advice, listen to it. Because what happens is when you're in a band that does well and people have a sort of reverence towards, you can understandably, at moments in time, think you're sort of untouchable and think you're almost not living the same life as everyone else. You're sort of in this fantasy or in this sort of movie where it's not real life. You're just living it out on screen. And I think that's probably what I was thinking for that minute. I was like, oh, this is amazing. We're in Mexico City. I'm about to play a show. I need to get this thing. I'll just get in a cab. I've been to Harlem. I can go into difficult places. What's the matter? And I kind of got too cocky. It all nearly came undone. So I think it teaches you to listen to proper advice and accept it and not think you're untouchable, which is definitely a fault of mine in the past.
This is what the promoter, Eduardo, said to you. The gist of it was, don't go anywhere without me. Don't take cabs anywhere. Stay close to the hotel or the venue. And if you need to go anywhere to eat, drink, shop, just call me and I'll come and pick you up in the van.
Yeah, you see, he told me what to do and I didn't do it. I mean, I didn't do it for understandable reasons for about a minute. I needed to go and get this disc from my hotel room. I couldn't find him in the venue. I didn't have a phone. Obviously, this is pre-mobile phones. I didn't have the opportunity to, well, it's probably not pre-mobile phones, but it's before I had a mobile phone. I didn't call the guy. I should have waited and waited. He probably would have been there in 10 minutes. Too impatient. That's the story of my life. I'm no patience at all.
I've heard from artists, musicians that when they became a parent, it changed their connection with fear. It changed their relationship with fear. So what I would like to know in becoming a parent, how did it change your relationship with fear and or courage?
I mean, you have to sort of skip forward a few years from that particular incident, which I guess would have been 1998 or something like that. Was it? I don't remember the exact year.
99.
Yeah, maybe something like 1970. And then how the book opens, the memoir opens, is with this brain tumor that I was diagnosed with in the early 2000s. So, after this one scary moment, which is, purely down to my own stupidity and foolishness and thinking that I didn't need to follow the advice and I could just go off and do what the hell I wanted in a foreign country. Being back home and then being delivered this news that I'd lost my hearing in my right ear and, that I had a brain tumor. Those are two, however strong a human being you are, getting news like that when you're a young parent, as a musician, losing your hearing is quite terrifying. But my wife now, she always says to me, you just get on with things. You don't ever let it sort of get to you. And you've just got this sort of wake up in the morning and just get on with it. It's happened. It's finished. There's no point. Nothing's going to be better by dwelling on it. You're not going to solve a situation by worrying about it. I'm wondering where that came from. Is that something that happened many, many years ago in school? Is it hereditary, or have I just got this sort of gene that allows me not to get too freaked out about it and worry too much and fearful? Don't have a great amount of fears about things. I mean, I don't like sharks. I hate snakes, but I'm not, I'm not like never going to go swimming because there's sharks in the water, because there's not here.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, there is actually. I saw one today, which is crazy. I saw a shark in Brighton and I posted it on my Instagram and two people went, no, that's not a shark, that's a seal. And I'm like, mate, I knew the difference between a shark and a seal. That was a basking shark. It's not like they've never been seen in the UK. It was 100% done. Anyway, I digress. So I just generally don't feel the point in being fearful. I'm so scared of something, I just want to do it. I'm not into roller coasters, so I won't be going on a roller coaster. That doesn't mean to say I'm a frightened person. I just choose wiser now after the Mexico incident. I'm a wiser person.
I want to read that part from the book at the very beginning, and this is the description of how that moment played out for you, hearing it from that situation. The doctor booked me in to clean the wax out of my ears, as she said she couldn't see if there was an infection or not. They flush warm water to your ears and it all unblocks. It feels very weird, but ultimately supremely satisfying, normally. But this time, the block feeling remained, and I still couldn't hear much on that side. This next step was to go and have an audiogram hearing test. At the conclusion of this test, the gentleman with the machine said I would need to go and have an MRI scan. That sounds a bit serious. And going back to those moments, if you can, retracing those steps, what a frightful thing to go through. And at that time, do you feel like you had some support?
No, I didn't have any. No, I mean, my first wife I think she didn't come to that particular meeting, but no, I didn't have any. And honestly, we weren't getting on so great at that point in time. And we were probably probably about to start getting separated and start the first steps of our divorce, really pretty much around that time. And I think almost the diagnosis of me having a brain tumor made her feel so awful about discussing divorce and separation that we probably, didn't talk about it at the time. We should have, because she felt bad. The last thing he wants to do is talk about that now. He's got a flipping brain tumor. I think I was more worried about them. I was worried about what people would think about a guy in the music business who couldn't hear anything. I just thought, gosh, this is my credibility as a musician and a producer and an A&R person, because I was an A&R person more at this point in time. That's going to be shot to pieces. No one's going to take that guy seriously. What do you think of this mix? Oh, actually, no, never mind. You can't hear anything. But luckily that never really manifested itself. And that's probably why I didn't tell anyone about it. I told, obviously, my kids and my family, but I didn't tell anyone in the music business about what it was. Yeah. Because I thought maybe my job would suffer as a result of it.
This next virtue is called discipline. In the field of battle, as in all things, you will perform as you practice. So practice hard. With practice, you build the road to accomplish your goals. Excellence lives in attention to detail. Give your all the time. Don't save anything for the walk home. The better a knight prepares, the less willing he will be to surrender. So, Simon, talk to us about discipline in terms of maybe daily habits, rituals that you've gone about through your career. I know Nick Cave has talked a great deal about his discipline. When he wakes up in the morning, he just goes to piano, gets his work done. That's what he does. What's kind of been your MO there?
Oh, I'm sort of ashamed to say that I am the most indisciplined of people. Rituals, I can't honestly say I've really had any until, I don't know, maybe even since January this year. I mean, I suppose in a way, COVID, when it happened, whatever year that was, 2019, 20-ish, wasn't it? I think that forced us, because we couldn't go out, we couldn't do things. And we were like, what are you going to do? You got to have some kind of habit, got to have some kind of ritual, because otherwise you go literally crazy just staring at the four walls. So, I mean, I think I certainly went on walk. Having a dog means you can go out a lot. I would religiously go for a long walk. I lost a ton of weight during COVID because I would do like 7 or 8 miles every day walking. And that was like, I never thought I would like that. I never thought any kind of physical exercise or just sort of physical discipline would be for me, because I've always just rejected it since I stopped playing football with my friends. I was just like, I hate going to gyms. I hate gyms where people are just standing around staring at each other, and I just hate it. It just seems so vain, and it's just so not me. But walking, I actually got into it, and I really started to enjoy it. I enjoyed the fact that I was looking better. I could fit some nice clothes for a change. I could go to shops instead of buying everything online. And I really enjoyed being lighter and fitter and healthier, because I'm breathing fresh air every day. Right. So COVID gave me a sort of discipline that it certainly wasn't intended to. And obviously a lot of people lost their lives, which is awful. For me, I actually quite enjoyed the solitude and the disciplines that COVID enabled me to start. And I made my record In Quiet Moments, was created purely just 50 yards from where I'm sitting right now in my studio in the garden. And I stayed in there for 3 months, just never came out, and just mixed that record all on my own. I hadn't mixed a record ever before. So that was a discipline that I had previously never figured I could master. Mixing, I guess, a right side of the brain thing. If the right side is the sort of meticulous mathematic side and the left is the creative, I'm not sure if it is, but if that is what it is, I thought my left side's very developed. My right side is completely incapable, never passed any maths, useless at science. I can't mix the record because you need to be incredibly focused and meticulous and detailed, granular, scientific approach to making sure this track sounds amazing, not just the whole thing, but each tiny element. And I was like, no, that's not for me. And then I realized, well, why isn't it for me? If I get someone else to do it, I have to pay them. And I also maybe have to keep going back to them going, yes, it's good, but could you add that back in? I just do it myself. No one's waiting on my records. No one cares about Lost Horizons. If I just get on with it and do it in my own studio, I can take as long as I bloody need. So I did. I mixed the whole record on my own, 16, 17 tracks. I felt so proud of that at the end of that. Talking about, I cried for a minute, going back to our earlier question. That really gave me a lot of pride because I thought, I can't do that mixing thing. That's for other people. And then I found that I could do it, and I was actually damn decent at it. So that discipline definitely was created out of that solitude, interestingly enough. But right now, since January, me and my wife, we've definitely been on a sort of a health kick to try and, go out every day, walk every day, cycle every day. And again, I'm feeling the benefits of that mentally. It's easy to let these things slip, when you're stressed out at work or whatever. Things get on top of you. It's very easy just to come home and just comfort eat and, sit on the sofa and watch stupid TV. And, we all do it, but it's easy for it to become habitual. We were starting to become quite conscious of that. And we just don't do that anymore. And it feels so great.
Well, that album, the In Quiet Moments album that you're referring to, that was easily one of my favorite albums of the year from 2021. I mean, that thing is just breathtaking body of work with all those wonderful guests that you had on there. So, hats off to you.
Thanks.
Okay, so we move into another virtue. This is called love. And in this chapter, Sir Thomas describes love as the highest value, not just romantic love, but this force that gives meaning to courage, generosity, discipline, and service. So what I would like to know from you, Simon, how has love made you vulnerable in your own life?
Yeah, it has. Sometimes for good and sometimes for bad.
Yeah.
I think as you get on a bit and you've sort of been through some letdowns and some disappointments in your personal life, and I've not had a million relationships, but all the ones I've had have been quite long. And of course, when anything lengthy ends or feels like it's coming to an end, that takes a lot out of you to come out of that situation and then again be positive and open yourself up for the possibility of it happening again with somebody different. Certainly, my wife and my first wife and I met when we were just like 17, 18 years old. We got married, much later, but we were together, for 24 years, and we had 2 beautiful kids. But certainly, when that relationship was at an end, we parted on very good terms. We're able to remain friendly. So that felt good. I hate jealousy and I hate sort of falling out with people so that there's a nasty feeling of lingering distaste and resentment, all that stuff. I can't stand all those emotions. I was quite determined that if we were going to break up and leave our children with, 2 separate parents rather than 2 together parents, at least we should both be happy. And that felt like a victory. And I think my next relationships were not great. And then until I met my second wife, Abby, who I've been with since 2011, married since 2013, that I think maybe it just took me that long to realize what really love was. And it, as you say, it isn't just one thing. It's everything.
Yeah.
It's being able to share all of the things with somebody and care about them and their well-being all the time, deeply, and beyond just like, they hurt their leg today, I must go and help them, beyond just a sort of carer or a lover, somebody actually just care very deeply about as a human being. And she is such an incredibly good person.
Nice.
And we just do connect very well on that level. I honestly can't think in 13 years, I don't think we've ever had a difficult moment, a bad argument, or it's not because we're frightened. We're frightened to. It's because we don't need to, because we talk it all through eventually. Sometimes it takes a little while, like everyone. Can't always rush home and go, I've got to tell you this shit is bugging me. It might take a few weeks, and then eventually when it comes out, it's great. So I think for me, it's just about liking myself, loving myself, and then being able to then be a good partner, be a good friend. I love my dogs because I want them to be enjoying every minute they have on the planet, because they don't stay with us for very long. I want to be a great husband. I want to be a great dad. I put a lot of store by those things because I think they're much more important than running a good record label.
There's a section in the book that really got me choked up because it connected to me. It connected to me due to my relationship with my father. I'm just going to touch on it, and then I've got a question. This is from the prelude. As mad as it sounds, I never had a proper deep chat with my dad about music. Indeed, we never really had a proper chat about anything. He wasn't around much when I was a child. Then, as a teenager, I was away at boarding school and rarely saw him. And even when I did, I was itching to get away as quickly as I could. Once I was in a band, I wasn't around much. Fast forward a little bit, you say this. I love this part. Whether it was because of my own distant relationship with him or in spite of it, I was determined that this would not be how it would be with my own sons. And even though I was away a lot, I made sure I spent as much time with them as I could. So what has fatherhood taught you about love?
Well, I think, growing up, seeing so many of my friends and family members have issues with parents.
Yeah.
And seeing history just repeats itself over and over, generation to generation. I've always looked at that. You read it in books and you see it in articles and no friends. There it is. My mum's doing exactly what her mum did and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, we know this happens, right? Everywhere we go, history repeats itself. That's what we read. That's what we grow up knowing. Yet, why are we still making the same mistakes over and over? I mean, animals in the animal kingdom don't make the same mistakes over and over. Well, they eventually work it out, and that's how evolution happens, correct? We need to evolve as a human race, and I don't honestly think in the last 50 or 60 years we've evolved at all. Certainly in the humanity side of things, we've obviously evolved technologically, but is that to the glory of the earth? I'm not sure it is. So I don't know. I thought if history repeats itself, and generally it does, and it is bad, why don't we just do good things and stop it? So that's really what the germ of that was when I looked at my own children and thought, well, whatever my own relationship with my next partner, whoever it is, even if it's terrible, does that mean I've got to have a bad relationship with my kids? It's so daft. So I just made an effort to be myself with them, tell them stuff that maybe they were too young. I told them about the brain tumor. They were probably too young to fully understand it, but I tried to at least tell them about it to show that I'm not invincible. I'm just like them. I'm just fallible, like we all are. And I could turn up to all of the sports things they did, and took them to music, took them to concerts. I check in with them. I have a granddaughter now, and it's the most important thing is to have a great relationship with my kids and my wife. It's like everything else is just not really that important. Yeah. Of course it is important, but in the grand scheme of things, those relationships mean a lot more to me than then I probably would have given myself credit to think like that maybe 30 years ago.
And to think like that, do you think love is something that we learn, or do you think love is something that we discover and uncover?
For me, I definitely learned it because I didn't even know what it looked like to start with.
Yeah.
You just have a relationship with someone and you call it whatever you call it. Is it really love? I mean, I don't know. What does it even mean? Do you know? It's like there is a lot of misunderstanding about it, and I don't think anyone's really come up with a foolproof description of it. For me, it's just about giving it all, giving everything of yourself, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to say things that might be unpopular or you're not sure about whether it's right or wrong. Having that safe space to talk about difficult things and just letting people in, letting them talk, and just being a good listener, and then just deeply caring about somebody and wanting to help them to help you, because we all need help in everything we do. But I don't think I inherently knew that stuff. I think I had to see other people do it. I had to learn from other people. Maybe reading, poetry and listening to music. It all helps. It go in, and then you do with it whatever you can, right? None of us know this shit. We just have to go through it and work it out. And if you have terrible experiences, it's more than likely that you're going to find it much harder to give out if everything that's coming in is horrible and hateful.
Yeah.
People with hate in their lives and anger and all this frustrations, they're not going to be full of loving, are they? Because they don't have enough good examples of it. But if you've got enough good examples of it in your life and you're able to give yourself up to it and not I never used to cry, right? When I was a kid, I never cried about anything unless somebody physically attacked me.
Yeah.
Emotionally, there's a bit of a cold fish. And now, I mean, I am completely the opposite. It doesn't take very much to have me, I said it in the book, to have me very emotional about things. And I don't know if that's an age thing or it's because I'm just allowing myself to feel things.
Right. And to feel those things goes back to that experience of solitude, to sit with it and be okay with it, whatever the emotion is, right?
Yes, and you have to do that. I think we sort of rattle through life at this sort of breakneck pace.
Yes.
Sometimes barely pausing for breath. And how are you ever going to absorb the important things that you need to learn how to deal with certain situations better than you previously did? If all you're doing is careering from one experience to the other without ever taking a breath to contemplate and consider what you just did, what you just heard, what you just said, what someone said to you. If it's all just coming out like kind of verbal diarrhea, then you're never really going to learn anything. And I think, whether it was the move to Brighton or meeting Abby or having dogs or whatever it was, I don't think it was one thing or another. It was just a general amalgamation of all these experiences and being open to accept that this ain't all going my way, right? Life does not always go your own way. In fact, it way often goes way more against you than it does for you.
Yeah.
Most people do not have, I mean, I have a pretty fortunate life, from the outside, people looking in and go, well, that guy's got it all, Things aren't always what they seem with people. How many people have you met that you thought, wow, they've got that whole thing worked out?
Right.
And then 3 weeks later, I heard they killed themselves. And you're like, what?
Right.
There's always an awful lot going on under the bonnet. That's the same with me, and that's the same with the people I live with and people I see every day where you think, they're all cool. There's nothing going on there. And then you dig a little deeper and something goes wrong and you find out there is an awful lot going on there. And that's when you need to be awake and listening and doing what you can to improve yourself and help them through their difficult times. So I think I'm a better person because of all the shit that I've gone through. The fact that I don't think I've worked it all out yet. I don't have all the answers. So maybe we can all work it out together. Unfortunately, we're living through a time that is unprecedented.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I grew up in the 70s I was a teenager when Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister here in the UK, and we all thought she was like the devil, the worst person on the planet. And we got through it, and we thought, well, thank God for that. It's never going to be that bad again. Yeah. And here we are 40 years later, and it's 100 times worse. I mean, you couldn't make this shit up. You really, really couldn't. So how are we going to deal with it? Are we just going to buckle under and just kill ourselves? Well, possibly. Or are we going to create something to heal us, to help us get through it? Whether it's, on our own sometimes if we have to, by solitude, by listening, by thinking, by listening to music, by doing arts, by getting involved with politics, or whatever it is, we have to make a better job of it than we've done in the past 20, 30 years, because this ain't good where we're at right now on a planet. This is not good in any stretch of the imagination.
Amen to that. And I will also add on to what you just said there. In 2020, when COVID hit, I'm actually sitting here, Simon, because of the Tim Burgess listening parties. Yeah. And the one that he did for Cocteau Twins' Heaven in Las Vegas album, when I participated in that, I said, that's what I want to do after teaching. I want to somehow instill the love of music through the power of conversation and community. And what Tim did during those really dark times, bringing us together, having those album listening parties, was extraordinary, right?
Yeah, the power of collective. It was so weird. I mean, it's like the most analog thing in the most digital way. It was very peculiar, for those that don't know, it was like, they would publicize a time when you would get online on Twitter, it was in those days, or X as it's called now, and everyone would listen to this chosen record, and the artist would be present, giving little anecdotes about each song, and you would all listen to it in real time. So with all the Cocteau Twins records I did I think 3 or 4 during that period for his listening parties. Our records are quite short, 36 minutes at Las Vegas or something like that, 34, 35 minutes. So it's over in a blink of an eye. And if I'm trying to give little anecdotes about each song, and I'm typing furiously on my screen, by the time I've started talking about Cherry Coloured Funk, stopped talking about Cherry Coloured Funk, which is track 1 on the record, the album's almost finished. So he did teach me one very important sort of lesson the day before, when I said, because I'd actually had not listened to Heaven Las Vegas for many, many, many years before that listening party. And when he asked me to do it, I said, yeah, sure. What do I have to do? And he sort of told me. And I said, oh, okay, well, I better listen to it first. He said, yeah, you should, because you actually want to have a few anecdotes sort of prepared in advance, because you won't be able to keep up with it. Even if you're doing one on a phone and one on the laptop, you need a few in reserve, because it happens all goes so quickly. And I was like, really? Oh, okay, whatever. So I listened back to the record the day before the actual party. And I found that whole experience super emotional, because I just realized what a brilliant record it was. I mean, I kind of probably knew, but I've just been so busy with my own world, my own life, that I'd sort of not really thought about Cocteau Twins very much until that listening party. And I thoroughly enjoyed it myself. I really loved every second of it.
Speaking of Cocteau Twins music, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up my favorite EP of all time, and that is Love's Easy Tears. And I take this, I will die on this hill, my friend, and I will say, undoubtedly, that is my favorite EP of all time. 4 amazing tracks: Love's Easy Tears, Those Eyes That Mouth, Sigh Smell of Farewell, and of course, Orange Apple. What do you think of those tracks?
Oh, I love them all. Yeah. I love them all.
Okay, so just quickly, in memory, Love's Easy Tears.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic record. Definitely one of the best EPs we did. I sort of loved that era where we weren't quite ready to make an album, but we really, really wanted to put music out, and we were experimenting with different rooms, different studio, different equipment. And because of the way we worked, which now you've read the book, I'm sure you sort of understand a bit more about how the songwriting process well, it wasn't even songwriting, it was just kind of jamming. We would just go in the studio and just make shit up as we went along. And that's sort of how we constructed our songs, music first, vocals right at the end. And I just think that was a really interesting period. It was sort of, what year was it? Probably 85, I think, something like that. We'd known each other now for 3 years, 3 years. We're getting a bit more accustomed to each other in the studio. I didn't feel like, well, I still did feel like the new boy, but maybe not quite as much as I did at the beginning. And we were just in a really good frame of mind, sort of in terms of experimenting. And those tracks just came together so quickly and fun. It was really great. The artwork was brilliant. And we were just really enjoying being in a band together at that point in time, sort of long before the things that started to kind of go wrong later on. It was long before that ever happened. And no, we weren't quite ready to make an album yet. And I think those EPs, whether it was from that period or Achy Guinea just before that, Love is Easy Tears, whether it was, the things that led up to Bluebell Knoll in 1988, that all of these were our way of just trying things out, trying to find out what our sound was. And I think, it was a very important learning period. And if you think of how many tracks we actually released between Treasure, which was what 1984, I guess, and Bluebell Knoll, which was the next full-time studio record in 1988. Yes, we had the Harold Budd record in between, but it's 4 years. But I think we released something like 30 tracks in between those two records, just on EPs. So we were certainly super productive, even though people might have felt well, there was the two EPs, of course, wasn't there? The Tiny Dynamite and Echoes in the Shallow Bay, which somebody, I think 4AD did stick them on an album at some point or put it on a CD so it looked like an album, but to all intents and purposes, they were two EPs as well.
Yes.
Very interesting time, very fertile.
Well, and I love that you talk about in the book, you say no demos made ever, and you do that in bold print.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
I forgot that. Yeah, I mean, because it is weird. Because, I don't work with bands that don't do demos. It's really important to sort of hear what their thought process and what they're doing. I want to hear your demos. Let me know what's going on. It's an important part of the process with working with bands. So the fact that we didn't do it was very strange. And I'm very proud of us for just sticking by our guns, sticking to our guns and just doing the things that we felt was right for us.
Before we move to the final virtue, I do want to ask you, Simon, what do you think, whilst working with Robin, whilst working with Elizabeth, what nuggets, what kernels did you gain from that experience?
Oh, gosh, honestly, William, there's so many. I mean, at the time, probably you don't, because you live in it, you're experiencing it, it is the norm, even though it's strange. It's the norm because it's every day going in the studio, going to play shows, doing this, doing that. It doesn't seem peculiar. It doesn't seem extraordinary. Certainly now, having worked with 1,000 bands since Cocteau Twins days, I'm more acutely aware than ever of how extraordinary that era was, that period, those two people were, for all their eccentricities and peculiarities to me at the time. I can look back on it and just go, what a moment in time for me to have walked into their lives and them into mine, for us to have been able to create this music together, with a label and a label boss that, whilst it all went wrong in the end, certainly for those first few years, just letting us get on with it, letting us do these things without saying, hold on a minute, you don't have any songs. How can you go and make a record with no songs? He wasn't doing that. He was just either just stupid and believing that we were telling the truth when we said, yeah, we got it sorted, don't worry about it. Or he was just the most incredibly generous guy. And he believed in us so deeply, and I do truly believe he did. So the nuggets from working with them is that I am just the luckiest person on the planet to have stumbled into that relationship. And I definitely do think that I helped and made a difference I'm not somebody that sort of thinks, well, I'm just so lucky it would have happened to them anyway, and
Sure.
my contribution was minimal. I don't think that's true. I think my contribution was significant enough. But, without either one of those, it wouldn't have been significant. They are both super, super, super talented people. And I think together, the three of us made a very powerful group. I think individually, you could argue whether it's been that great for any of us in terms of significance. Whether that you could make that claim, I'm not sure, but I'm certainly happy with the music I do. But is it ever going to be as significant without Elizabeth? Probably not, because she is at that elite level of performer in the studio and live. She's doing something that no one else is really doing. She's going to a place that no one else is really going. So believe me, I don't take it for granted for a second that I was in the most extraordinary band for that period of time, for the whatever it was, 13 years I was in it. And it won't ever be repeated. There's people always asking me, when are you going to reform? And why won't you go on tour again? Well, because it never can. You can never recapture that.
Right.
You could try.
Right.
And who's to say we couldn't? We'll get together and make a decent sounding record. But we're all different people. We're all different. We developed. So Liz don't sing like that anymore. I don't play like that anymore. We've all moved into different areas and doing different things, as one should do. Can't just keep churning out the same thing over and over and over again. Well, I know a lot of bands do. I don't find any pleasure in that particularly, but who knows? You can never say never, and I think possibly the idea of a reunion, even if it's a tour, is maybe slightly more possible in 2026 than it was in 2016. And I don't say that because without having any inkling that it'll happen or any particular interest in making it happen, but we do all get on. And we are all really excited about where Cocteau Twins as a band is at in terms of the world experience, the people experiencing us. Our audience has never been bigger than it is right now.
It's
really
extraordinary. It is extraordinary because I could go to all different various places of the world and I could mention Cocteau Twins and somebody's going to make a connection.
It hits me every day. Listen, honestly, I can't tell you. And we're all affected by that. And that surprises me and also really deeply pleases me because I wasn't always sure in the last 20 years or so, or whatever, since we broke up. Well, 30, Christ. I mean, I wasn't always sure that everyone we all felt similarly proud of what we did. I didn't know that, but I know that now. And that feels really special because then you don't feel like, well, there's not much point me being proud of it because they aren't, so why should I be, sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But now I know we all are. I know we're all so proud of it, and we're all so thrilled that a new audience is discovering us all the time. Our key audience is 15 to 25-year-old women right now, and that's just so beautiful to know that the kids are growing up, listening to this music for the first time and not thinking that it's being made by people in this. It's really fantastic. And that shows you how music is still the most potent art form there is.
Cocteau Twins being timeless. Okay, let's wrap it up with this last virtue. This is death. This is what our knight says. Life is a long series of farewells. Only the circumstances should surprise us. A knight concerns himself with gratitude for the life he has been given. He does not fear death. For the work one night begins, others may finish. Do you ever think about legacy?
I have thought about it. I don't wander about all day thinking about it, but I have thought about it. And I think if I passed away tomorrow, I would feel happy that what I'd left behind with that group at any rate was a pretty decent effort. You know, I think it gave pleasure to some people. I know it did. And you know, in many cases more than just a pleasurable listen. You know, it's not just pop music. It's not just music that you enjoy going from A to B, having a listen. Oh yeah, that's a great track. That's fun. I like that song. This is music that I know affected a number of people quite deeply, quite profoundly. And believe me, I mean, I don't wonder about having a large head about it. I'm not big-headed about it. It is just something I'm aware of, and I don't understand it really. But I also know that I felt that same experience when I heard it. You know, when I heard Elizabeth singing for the first time in the studio on a track, I'd be like, my God, I mean, like, listen to this thing. It's incredible. So I knew it was possible for people to feel this about the music. So knowing that they do is, of course, a beautiful thing. So if I died tomorrow, I'd be more than happy with what I've left behind.
And what do you hope Bella Union leaves behind?
Well, that's a conflicting kind of question for me because it's sort of wrapped up in businessy things too for me. It's not just about music, Cocteau Twins for me, because it doesn't exist anymore. It's a finite period of time that happened, a period in my life that I can look back on and go, we made this then. And I can look back at it fairly romantically and listen to it as art. What I'm doing right now, it's a mixture of beautiful things that I think we've put out there into the world, mixed with how the fuck am I going to carry on doing this in a world that literally doesn't give a shit about about new bands and new music. You know, when ticket prices are just ridiculous, when venues are closing down every 5 minutes. It's very hard to think about Bella Union's legacy while I'm still right deep in the throes of doing my very best to make it work. Maybe if it finished tomorrow and you asked me that question 10 years' time, I'd be able to answer it better. I mean, we've left behind some amazing records as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
You know, whether it's Fleet Foxes or Beach House or introduced bands like Father John Misty and worked with the likes of Spiritualized and Mercury Rev and some iconic artists and developed some baby bands like Deary and Pompoko and Lowly and bands that, you know, people are still just discovering about. So I definitely feel like I'm super proud of what we've put out there into the world. But whether the world really cares is conflicting me a little bit, because when I'm on my bad days, I'm thinking, I don't know if anybody really gives a shit about new music anymore. Because I don't have the perspective I do with the Cocteau Twins, where I've got constantly every day people saying, wow, that band changed my life. Nobody's really saying that to me about Berlin, and quite rightly so. So it's just a difficult question to answer succinctly. I try my best.
We talked about fear and courage. Are you afraid of passing?
No.
No.
Not at this moment in time, because it's not imminent, I hope to God. I'm in good shape. You know, my brain tumor is not threatening my life in any way, as far as I'm aware anyway.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have any major diseases that are problematic. I can still function quite well. So I don't see it happening tomorrow, so I'm not frightened of it, because if I'm going to the dentist tomorrow, I'm frightened about going to the dentist tomorrow because I know it's tomorrow. Death, I don't know when that's coming, so I'm not it's not in the front part of my brain. Will I be frightened of it when it comes along? Couldn't tell you the answer to that. I don't think so. because my general attitude to things is, if it happens, it happens. What's everyone worrying about it? Because it'll happen.
Yeah.
When you're dead, there's no point worrying about it because there's nothing to worry about any longer. I just want to make sure all the dotted and the T's across, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I want to make sure everyone's okay. Myself, I don't really care about that much, but I want to make sure all of this is taken care of. The label is in good shape, in good hands, whether that's with my wife or my kids or whatever. Not sure, but if it happened tomorrow, I would be like, I didn't get that sorted out yet.
Simon, at the end of my conversations, I always do a little bit of fun. And normally that's just rapid fire questions, but I'm not going to do that with you.
Okay.
So here's the fun. So I've started this new thing called Pay the Question Forward. Yesterday, I interviewed a band called Asteroid Number 4, and they have some questions for you. And then after you answer those questions, you're going to ask the question to the next artist I'm interviewing. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, of course.
Okay. Here are the questions. Simon, what is your favorite piece of studio gear you must have whilst recording, and why?
Great question. Favorite piece of studio gear? I mean, today or forever? I mean, Lexicon 480 is an amazing reverb that sort of defines the sound of that Cocteau Twins. You know, the drum sounds and the whole reverb vibe that exists around Cocteau Twins. It wouldn't really have happened without the Lexington 480. So, but I mean, that is very much a kind of timepiece. I mean, there's people still using them these days in studios, but my studio is so minimal. The one in the garden, I don't have any tape anymore. I don't, everything is just through. I mean, Ableton is my go-to. That's what I love more than anything. I'll tell you why I love Ableton so much. Not just because it's super easy and very musical and quite like a tape machine in its way, but I always got quite down on myself as a producer and as a mixer, as I mentioned earlier. I had a band I was working with who wanted Dave Fridman, the great mixer of Impala and Flaming. They wanted him to mix the record, and I contacted Dave and said, would you be interested in mixing this band? And he's, I love that band. I'd love to work with them. He said, what kind of program do they work on? Do they work Pro Tools or Logic? And I said, I think they work on Logic. What do you work on? He said, well, I work on Ableton. I sort of just suddenly felt like, oh my God, I've got Ableton. And Dave Fridman is like one of the kings of mixing and producing. So if he's got it, then that must mean that I can do cool things too. Now, there is an addendum to this story, which I won't bore you with because it's quite long and wordy. But ultimately, I sort of did something in Ableton with another band that I wouldn't have done had I not known that Fridman was an advocate. And the sound that Fridman gets, and I'm not denouncing his skills in any way, but there is a program within Ableton that allows you, just the average human being like me, to recreate that Dave Fridman crunchy, overdriven, sort of insanely brilliant drum sound that he gets on his records. And I thought, wow, I wonder what gear he has. Well, I can tell you, humans, that you can use the Ableton drum bus and this program called, I think it's Crunchy Drums or something, to get very close to Fridman's sound. That made me very, very happy, and I wouldn't be without that.
What's going on in San Francisco when you visit the Bay Area in August? Would you like to tell our listeners? You're going to be a DJ, yeah?
I am. I'm going to do a few things out there. I'm going with my wife, and we actually got married in Carmel.
Yeah.
And we are going back to Carmel as well to DJ at the La Playa Hotel, which weirdly is where we had our wedding party. Nice. It's insane. I just got this mail from this guy out there going, do you want to come and DJ in Carmel? And we were like, yes, we'd love to come back to Carmel. He went, well, it's in La Playa. Do you know it? And I'm like, yes, we got married there. It was like, what? So, yeah, I'm going over for the Cocteau Fest, and I got invited to go and do like a book thing there and DJ at the event. And then I'm going to go on KCRW in the evening with Olive Kamatis, who's a brilliant DJ that works on KCRW, DJ at Zebulon as well. So, in LA. So, a lovely little trip to California in August is imminent.
This is going to be fantastic. Grab your tickets, everyone. And if you've never been to the chapel in San Francisco, I'm telling everyone right now, it is a wonderful, warm, intimate venue.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's great. And so many good restaurants in the Mission around there.
Fantastic.
Anything else coming down the line for you that you want to share?
Well, it's whether I can. I mean, I've just done something quite exciting in the film world. I just kind of contributed to a track. We're probably not allowed to talk about it, though, so I'll have to maybe email you about that later.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, nice to be asked to do some interesting, different things. Played bass and guitar on this track for a soundtrack. I'm starting to think about making a new record. Not a Lost Horizons record, maybe just yet, but as kind of Simon Raymonde ambient thing. I've got the feeling that I need to do that. I've got an itch that needs to be scratched. So I'll be doing that. I've got a Bella Union 30th anniversary coming up next year, and there's going to be so much going on there with live shows. Me and my wife are probably going to put together a photo book or potentially a book. We're also doing there's a documentary being made about the label right now.
Nice.
We're contributing to. So there's certainly lots going on.
You are one busy. I love how you are really, what did they say? Carpe diem, seizing the day.
Yes. Well, absolutely.
Last quote, and it comes from your book. We ain't talking about it, Simon. It seems that my own past is no longer just a shoegazy blur of distant lights receding in the rearview mirror. It is clearly visible in my present too. Cocteau Twins have never been as popular as we are now, almost 3 decades after we stopped making music. As the great pianist Vladimir Horowitz once said, "My future is in my past, and my past is my present. I must now make the present my future." This has been
profound, isn't it?
It is. And thank you so much for this conversation. Everyone grab this book by Simon Raymonde, In One Ear, Cocteau Twins, Ivor, and Me. You can get it pretty much anywhere. It is a must read. And even if you aren't familiar with Cocteau Twins, but you appreciate the art of making music and conversation and friendship and love and all those things, it's all in here. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome. My name is W, host of this podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. And remember this, everyone. Great music is all around us. All you have to do is keep your ear open.